I'm from Alberta, which has the reputation of being the most conservative province in Canada. But did you know that despite the mainstream narratives on that reputation actually doesn't hold up? Did you know that studies showed that most Albertans actually aren't ideologically conservative, even though many of them tend to vote for parties that are named conservative? Research continues to show that actually Albertans are ideologically centrist. And that doesn't mean every single person in Alberta is a centrist, right? Obviously, no two people come from the same walks of life, so there's a diversity of viewpoints in the province. But what I mean by this is you can measure this a few different ways. And while I'm going over this, you'll see that Alberta actually has a false perception problem. So, for example, if you get Albertans to place ourselves on a single left right political spectrum and to self pick our ideological placement, many Albertans will actually pick the political center. However, if you ask Albertans to place where we perceive the average Albertan to be on the political spectrum, most Albertans will place the average Albertan to be somewhere on the right side of the political spectrum. Additionally, you kind of get similar results if you ask Albertans our opinions on policies. What researchers tend to find is that actually Albertans tend to range from moderate to progressive on issues. But if you ask Albertans what we think the public support is for policies, the province tends to underestimate left-wing policy support and overestimate the province's conservatism. So that does mean that Albertans tend to have centrist tendencies. But what this also means is that many Albertans are walking around their day-to-day lives thinking, I am a centrist, but I think most of the people around me are more ideologically conservative than I am. And implications of this can include things like that can change our behavior with each other, but that also can change our political behavior in a few different ways, but I'll give one hypothetical example. So, for example, if somebody disagrees with what the government is doing, they might be less likely to speak out about it because oftentimes people don't want to be perceived as being offside with public opinion. So, it seems like we experience a lot of pluralistic ignorance in this province. But what researchers have also found is that people who've lived in Alberta longer tend to have a more accurate sense of public opinion. And I'm a multi-generational Albertan, and I was aware that this was happening. But I'm not sure how many people who have moved here from other provinces potentially or are in other provinces in Canada that were aware of this. Someone's ideology and voter behavior aren't necessarily the same thing. So I thought I would puncture this myth about the province's reputation today.